Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is a profile on Clarence CKilcrease. As a matter of fact, I think the title is The Radio Career of Clarence CKilcrease. And of course, we have with us to give us that information Mr. Clarence CKilcrease himself. And of course, Clarence, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, and let me say thank you for the invitation.
You know, I think, Clarence, you are well known throughout the community and throughout Tennessee, and indeed many other areas outside of community in Tennessee. And so I think it's a real privilege for us to have you here tonight, this morning, to talk about what we consider to be some very, very important information dealing with not only your radio career, but the kind of information and the light that you might be able to throw on exactly how to do certain things dealing with making success in a viable radio career. And so let's start that off by giving you an opportunity to talk about Clarence CKilcrease, to talk about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of your career, eventually getting you involved in radio.
Okay, first of all, my intention was not to be in radio. My intention was to become a minister. All through high school, they were calling me Rev, you know, hi, Reverend, you know. And they almost made me a minister. Somehow, during that time, maybe I sidetracked and I met a young man. His name is Ivy Blair. He's gone now, he's died, but he were interested in radio. And after I finished Pearl, and I wanted to go into the American Baptist Theological Seminary, they called it then. That day it was a theological seminary. And I inquired about it because I thought I really wanted to be a minister. But this young man came along, man, said he wanted to be a disc jockey. So he said, would you come on and go to the station with me? So I did, and I'll never forget, I was just finished, almost finishing high school, and went to a station called WSOK. And I went over there, man, I saw all this fascinating equipment, these guys, you know, and he was talking to the disc jockeys about how to get in school and etc. So I said, man, this is interesting. So I began to think about it, you know, because my mind really wasn't made up. But after I went to the radio station, I changed my mind and say, I think I want to go take this as make it a career. At that time, there were no schools, radio schools, so there was a school called the Tennessee School of Broadcasting, and they were sending out applications to all the white schools, but not to the black schools. So this young white boy I knew gave me this application, filled the application out, and they refused the application. So I said, man, so, you know, it was sort of setback to me, you know, because at that time I couldn't understand it, you know. But there was a guy named John Richburg who was a known radio personality, which LAC was 50,000 watts, covered the whole United States, you know. And he had just started a radio school. And he gave us a chance to enter his school. And Ivy and I, we finished his school. And during that time, we got a little program, 30 minutes a piece, called Mr. Tune and Mr. Teen. He was Mr. Teen, I was Mr. Tune. So it gave us a break. 30 minutes every Sunday, man, and you're talking about excited. So exciting, and I thought this will give me a chance. Didn't know how far I would go at that time, you know. But from that day on, man, I began to just move on, and you know, and I thought I went to the top because I got as high as GM, a radio vice president, GM, a radio station, were able to do a lot of things for a lot of people. So that's the first start of my career in radio, yes.
You know, Clarence, I think in terms of dealing with radio, you've already indicated, I think, earlier when you talked about the rejection of your application.
Yes.
But I think what we'd like to do during this period, this segment as well as the next segment, is to talk about some of the problems or some of the challenges that you find in for African Americans and for perhaps other minorities, and not only African Americans, perhaps women and others who would like to also become involved in radio. I mean, what are some of the things that you can say about how to get involved?
Let me say this, and since you mentioned that, you know, at that time we were very limited as far as broadcasting were concerned. There were no blacks in television, very few. And this is when Oprah Winfrey came along, came to the radio station at one time. At that time I was the GM and the vice president of the radio station. A lady named Drew Smith came to a radio station with Oprah, wanted me to sponsor Oprah. I think it was Miss Fire Prevention. And so at that time I did. I called my owner. It was only $50 and asked him if he would sponsor her. He said no. So I remember taking $50 out of my pocket. Back then, $50 was a lot of money. And I sponsored her in Miss Fire Prevention. However, she was taped by one of the other guys, and they brought the tape to me and said, come over and listen to audition tape. And at that time, I had a young lady from TSU had applied for a job in news guy because I wanted a news person, wanted to be a female, and I had hired her as to become a news reporter. And I heard Oprah, and I said, man, this is something different, something unique, and I hated, my worst job was to tell this young lady that I had changed my mind and was going to hire someone else. And at that time, the FCC was bearing down on TV stations for not hiring blacks. Understand? So the first time they called her, and I said, Oprah, maybe you're not ready. Maybe you should, you know, spend a little bit more time here. But see, and then about 3 months later, they called her back. And see, this TV station that called her killed two birds with one stone because she was black and she was female. But they was very limited, and I remember so well when the FCC came down on all the television stations, said, open your doors, because blacks are very limited. So this is a starting, this is when I first dawned on me about, look, we should excel in broadcasting. And so it began to get better. But it took a pretty good while for it to make this change, you know. Yes.
You know, if you thought about that as a career, and you thought about some kind of formal training that you believe would be important in order to make a person accelerate and go to the top of your career. See, you've had all these chances to gather all of this information. But in telling a person, I mean, what are some of the characteristics that that individual has to step in front of that microphone?
Let me say this. You know, we went to school for training for this job, for this profession. But there were guys who walked off the street who just had a gift. Had a gift. I recall a young man from Philly, he was going to TSU, called the Seventh Son. This young man came in and told me he had a big radio career in Philly, and you know, he just came down to go to school, and I checked on him, he had never been inside a radio station. I hired this young man. This young man came on and just took the city by storm. These are special people. Now, everybody can't do this, but in today's radio, you've got to have the training. You've got to have the training because there are so many new techniques now. You got to be able to meet the challenge. You know, you don't expect now to start here and just stay here because the opportunities are open everywhere, you know, for the big networks. And you see today how many blacks are on network station. And this should be every young man or female or male dream is to, when you start, go to school, get the right training so you'll be qualified. We could get away with the high school education at that time, but now it's more than that. So don't think, you know, a lot of people called and said, look, I want to come out and audition for a job. I said, what kind of experience have you had? Well, I haven't had any. Oh, I believe I can play records, but there is much more than just playing records. Much more. So this is the reason why, Dr. Haney, it is so important that our young people prepare themselves because it's a different story. I just wondered, you know, how many kids today, well, there are quite a few who are interested. And just don't think that you can come here and just, I'm going to walk in out the street. And, you know, a lot of people say...
Let me hold it here for a minute for our first commercial break. And we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. You see what I'm saying? Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The guest is Mr. Clarence CKilcrease, and the topic is a profile on the radio career of Clarence CKilcrease. And of course, CKilcrease, before we had our first commercial break, you were talking about the opportunities that are available and how at one time it was quite difficult to become involved in broadcasting. And I think we were using as an example your relationship with Oprah Winfrey. Let's follow that up.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people said, well, you know, I never really bragged about starting Oprah off. A lot of people said, well, you know, she would have made it regardless. Maybe she would have made it, but nobody walks off the street and go into a TV station. Had I not hired Oprah to become a news reporter in VOL, she would never been heard. So I'm saying that her, and you know, and I don't take no credit for anything because she has talent. That's one thing for sure. But the talent was not discovered until she became a radio reporter, and then the station heard her. Now, I don't know what the chances are had not she gone, had not I hired her. But I do think that I had something to do with her career. It's nothing to brag about because I'm not asking for anything, you know. But it's something maybe you may want to put on your resume or something of that sort. But as young people, and I've received so many applications every day. People wanting to become a broadcaster, and you know. With all this new technology and everything, I see the young men here, cameramen, and they into the field. They're training, plus they going to school. And this is what it's going to take, Doc. It's not if I can get lucky hardly anymore. I mean, some people do fall, you know, they slip through the crack, but it's slim today. Today it's a different story today than it was 20 years ago. Yes.
And the most important thing is training. Training.
And the education to back you up. Because when you walk into, if you walk into NBC, you got to have credentials, man. Look, I'm a graduate of this. This is my specialty. This is my training, you know. And it's hard to get into any kind of field without any training. You just got to have it, yes.
You know, one of the most important things I think about radio, Clarence, I think, and you can probably enlighten us here, has to do with advertising. Let's talk about that as a topic.
And that's another thing about radio stations, because, you know, ratings are the things now. If your station don't have any ratings, then you don't get the advertising that you should get. It's hard. Black stations were slighted so many times. We got the crumbs. The other station, white station, would get the big dollar, and we would get what's left over. And this is a problem that the station had because they wasn't able to pay you as much money as you should have got compared to the other stations. You know, for instance, I knew guys who were in the mornings time. And in the black community, we would always take like a black rating, a black pulse. Okay. And we were #1 with the black audience. They were #1 with the white audience. And their salary was just like daylight and dark, you understand? But advertising, man, they wasn't fair. It was very unfair. I remember, man, when I became manager of the radio station, I would go out to these advertisers and people who I thought had better views on this thing as far as race was concerned. I remember going into a place and the lady said, who are you? And I told her, introduced myself in my car. She went back, never came back out until she said, I guess I'll wait him out. Maybe he'll have sense enough to leave. And this was like happening all over. You know you were not accepted, and when you walk in, you can just feel the atmosphere. Well, no, we are, you know, just all kind of excuses. But they would take your dollar if you go in their store, but they wasn't really advertising for your dollar. So we had a lot of problems trying to get advertisers. Today's systems where that the ratings are is the cake, it's the Bible really for radio. It's different between on a national basis. You have a national sales rep, where the national advertisers said, I'm gonna buy the first top 4 radio station. I don't care what they are. Okay, good. You understand? Okay, explain so you're gonna get that national business, but when it comes to the local, you can go to West End, and that's these people out there, you know, unless they got some loud clothes or something pertains to black clothes or something, to advertise with your station. They're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. Within your limits, around about mom and pop stores, stores around on the corners in the black neighborhood. Well, maybe, but they don't have the budget. They don't have the budget to advertise. Advertising is so high now. You know, we couldn't go to Bill Meade, and I imagine a black station today could not go to Bill Meade and get advertising, because really, you know, I guess it's off limits.
Is the assumption that that these stations do not reach a clientele? I mean, because I think you've said that sometimes you reach more people in your community than anybody else. Well, what about some of the kinds of things that we all share in common, automobiles and whatnot? I mean, if you talk about
well, that's a different story, you know. The automobile, you know what we like. We like the big cars, but it's still hard to get advertising from them. You know, and if you don't, and I won't even call the name of cars, but you know what kind of cars we like, and you can see these cars. Every other car is maybe the car that we're driving, and it's still their agencies control their buyers, you know, but you still don't get the dollar as you would other stations. You still don't get the dollar.
Well, don't they know that we consume, or is it just the assumption that we're going to consume, we're going to ride in that automobile
That's
anyway?
It. You hit it.
So it really doesn't matter.
You hit it. You hit down the. You hit the the nail on the head. I think that they know we're going to buy these cars, and by us not owning anything, owner of a dealership, or things of that sort, we don't have any other choice but go to the dealership and buy to make a car that you want. It doesn't matter that you don't get that much advertising dollars, but so they kind of got your little taste. If we want to sacrifice that, well, I'm not going to do this, but how many of us want to sacrifice?
Yeah, that's
yes, and do that.
Yeah, and of course I think that spreads not only in the automobile industry, but that spreads all across. Wherever.
It's better. It's better, but we still have a long way to go.
Yes. Very good. I think I spoke with the editor of an African American newspaper, and I think the same thing was true in reference to advertising.
Sure.
The assumption is, yet we buy more guns, more cars, more other things than you could ever imagine.
That consumer report is something else, man. It's amazing. You look at that report and said, this is unbelievable.
Right. And of course, let us take this final commercial break.
All right.
We'll be back with our audience following this commercial break.